great to get the excitement and get this campaign really going. It's so exciting to see all the signs going up and see all of the support that we have within the community. We're delighted to have Jagmeet with us today to come and share some of the messages from the head office. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear him talk, so I'm going to pass this over to Jagmeet.
First off, can you give it up to our amazing candidates? These are awesome. And all these amazing candidates know this, and you probably all know it as well, but all the amazing work that gets done in any community can't happen by itself. It's actually not done by one person or one candidate, it's done by an amazing team. So everyone in this room is a part of that team. So can you give yourselves a round of applause? So I'm really excited to be here. I feel a lot of excitement in all of you, and the passion, I can see it in your faces, and the fact that you're so excited about what we can do in this election. And I want to talk a little bit about what's at stake, because there's a lot at stake. A couple of quick things I should start off with. I think everyone across Canada, particularly New Democrats, saw Premier Notley and the Alberta New Democrats doing such an incredible job. They showed people when you have a New Democratic government, you have someone on your side, fighting to make people's lives better, trying to make students' lives better by freezing tuition fees, fighting to help farm workers, helping families, protecting education and healthcare. And then with Premier Kenney, the exact opposite. Within such a short span of time, cuts to all the things that families need. So there is a stark contrast. When you have New Democrats, they fight for you, they make your life better. You've got Conservatives, they fight to make it easier for the richest, the multi-billionaires, and they make it harder for everyone else. And that contrast couldn't be any sharper than what we saw here in Alberta. So a lot of love for our amazing, amazing Alberta provincial New Democratic team who did such a great work. And now I think there's a lot of motivation. One of our best campaigners that's campaigning really hard for New Democrats is Premier Kenney. He's out there campaigning and showing how horrible it is to vote Conservative. So in a lot of ways he's up in the South, but he's making it hard for people, so it's pretty confusing. I want to talk to you about a little bit about what we talked about earlier today. We had a roundtable about pharmacare, and I heard some of the stories. I heard a story from a paramedic, and this story really captured what's wrong with our system. There was a person that he treated who was a worker who was working on a construction site, didn't have a lot of jobs before that, was kind of struggling, so was trying to get by. And he got an okay job, but he didn't get paid yet. He was waiting for his paycheck, so he's kind of trying to stretch out the money that he had left over. So he looked at his bills and he said, okay, what can I cut out? And he said, okay, I can cut down a bit on my food, I can cut down a bit here and there. And then he looked at his medication. He only had one illness, he's got epilepsy. And he looked at the medication that he had to take, and it's really expensive. So he tried to ration out his pills. He took one day, two the other day. He was supposed to take 2 a day, and he thought if I cut back my dosage a bit, I might be all right. Well, he was out on the work site, climbing up a ladder, and he got a seizure. And he fell off, and he landed on a pile of, when they're working, they're kind of throwing a bunch of material on one area called a pile. He fell on the pile, broke his hip, broke his femur, broke ribs, and he was in a bad way. The medication he needed was called Dilantin. He ended up getting, Chris was it Chris? What was the name of the paramedic?
Yeah.
It was Chris, yeah. Chris the paramedic patched him up, got him into the ambulance, took him to the hospital. At the hospital, the first thing they did is they found out what was wrong with him and said he's got a history of epilepsy. They immediately put him on Dilantin. So Chris is like, basically, to get the medication he needed to fall off of a ladder and break his hip and his ribs to get the Dilantin that he needed that would have prevented him from getting in the first place. And if there's any more clear example of why we need pharmacare for all, it's that story that Chris told me.
Right on.
And I think about that young man that fell off the roof, basically, and I think about what liberals are going to say to him. Liberals are going to say, hey, you know what? We're ready. We're going to help you out. We're going to do another study and research if we should implement it in 10 years or in 20 years. That's what the liberals are going to do. They're not going to make his life any better. And the conservatives are going to say, you know what? We'll give you a tax credit. We'll give you a tax credit, and somehow that's going to help you out. He's like, well, I'm not a multimillionaire. That's not going to help me out. So the Conservatives aren't going to help him out. It's New Democrats that are going to be there for him and say, you know what? If you need medication in this country, if anyone needs medication in this country, you should use your health card, not a credit card. Right. That's right. And here's the beauty of our plan. We want to take care of people. We want to make sure that that never happens again, that someone who needs that medication doesn't have to ration it and say, oh, I can't take it, and ends up hurting themselves. We don't want young people who are, I met a kid who was 10 years old and he had a chronic illness and he was doing all these things, injections and taking medication. And he was like, no, I got this, I'm okay, I can handle this, life or death illness. I'm only worried about being a burden to my parents. He was worried about how much his medication cost his mom and dad. A little kid was worried about being a burden. The Liberals are going to say to that kid, okay, you know what? Just wait 10 more years. He's not going to be a little kid in 10 years. The Conservatives are going to say, you know what? I'll give you a tax credit. Again, that's not going to help that little kid. It's not going to make his life better. We're going to say to that kid, we're going to make sure that your family never feels in any way that you're a burden. You're not a burden. You are a part of our society. You deserve to feel like you belong. We're going to make sure your medication is covered. That's what we're going to tell that kid. That's going to mean a lot to him. Right on. We also get a lot of people worried about jobs. Jobs is a top of mind thing, and I know people are really hurting and worried about that. And I've spoken to resource workers, and they're worried about the future. But I know that's not uncommon. That's not something that just happened now. I remember meeting someone at the Calgary airport when I landed, actually, and he told me, I'm working in the resource sector, and I'm worried about what's going to happen. I'm not sure about my job. He said, you know, my dad had the same thing. My dad used to work, he was an engineer. His dad was a laborer and worked in the resource sector. He said, he also went through these busts and booms. And I said, you know what? It's not your fault that no matter how hard you work, that because of no fault of your own, that there's these volatilities in the market that mean that you may or may not have a job. That to me is really unfair. That's just wrong. And what we need to do is make sure that workers are never left behind. So we've got some really bold plans to make sure that there's work for people, that we can actually make investments to create jobs in communities. So people who are in the skilled trades will have a job in communities because we're planning to build 500,000 new affordable homes across this country. That's going to put people to work in Edmonton. We've got a jobs plan to help retrofit buildings because we know those buildings, a lot of buildings need retrofitting. Most of the buildings around us, 75% of them will still be around by 2050, and so that means we've got to make sure that they're retrofitted. And so that's going to create jobs for skilled tradespeople, for plumbers, for electricians, for people who've got the skills that maybe don't have a place to work right now. We're going to find them a place by investing in retrofit programs, so we retrofit every home and all the major buildings around us. By making those investments, we're going to encourage jobs in communities, put people to work in a way that's going to lift people up. But I know a lot of people are also facing kind of that precarity where they're working contract jobs, they're working, you know, I met a young person who was a snowboard instructor, worked as teaching music. And, it's pretty funny. He was this young kid, he's saying, like, I'm working all these different jobs, I don't have any benefits. And I was thinking about what that's all about. A lot of people who are worried about their benefits. I met a woman who today was talking about the fact that she's got good benefits, but every year her company renegotiates and she's worried if she might lose her benefits. And that's a really big fear that people have. And I think about my own story a little bit, like what my dad went through. And my dad was a doctor, earned a good income, was doing really well, but he was struggling with addiction. And I shared this story in my book recently, but that meant a lot of hardship for our family. We went through lots of pain and lots of difficulty because of that. And I won't tell you too many of those details, but one of the things that happened was when he needed help, when he was working, he had private insurance. So as soon as he needed some help and he thought, okay, I need to get better, my addiction is controlling me too much, he got rehab and he was able to find a rehab center pretty easily with his private insurance. Well, after a number of years, he got so bad that he couldn't work anymore. So he lost his ability to practice and we started falling into pretty deep debt. At one point we lost our home, we had nowhere to live for a bit and times were pretty tough. And my dad ended up spiraling out of control and he ended up stopping to eat food. He was just drinking only. And at that point, he went from he wasn't tall, but pretty broad-shouldered, 180-pound guy to about 100 pounds. And I remember when he was so frail, he was walking with a walker. I had to carry him to the washroom to help him clean up, and he felt like a little kid in my arms. And imagine when you're a dad, you think of this really strong person being like a child in your arms. It's pretty sad to see that. And he ended up being hospitalized multiple times because he was just not eating, his body was falling apart, and the doctor said to him, "You're gonna die. If you don't change what you're doing, if you don't get help, you're going to die." And he had heard that a couple of times because he'd been hospitalized, multiple times in a couple of months. For some reason, something hit him at that moment. He said to the doctor, he looked up and said, "I don't want to die. I want to live. I need help." And we just tried to find him some help. We didn't have any money to get him into a private place. We didn't have any insurance. We didn't have any benefits. So by chance, really luckily, I kind of thank the Universal Energy for this. We found a publicly funded rehab center called Brentwood in the city of Windsor. And he got admitted. We did a 90-day treatment, and he recovered. And it saved his life. In a lot of ways, it saved my family. So I truly believe in my heart that no one should ever worry about their job, their income, their job status. That everyone in our country should get the health care they need. So for me, when I say we need to expand our healthcare to include medication for all, we also need to expand it beyond that to include dental care, vision care, hearing care, addiction and rehabilitation, and mental health services. Head to toe coverage so everyone. So there's a lot of stuff we got to do. We've got to, protect this planet for the future generations. We got to make sure we take care of working people. We've got to invest in healthcare. We got to get better lighting. We're going to retrofit these buildings. To do all of that, it's going to take a lot of your work. It's going to take a lot of your energy. And I know that you've got a lot of things going on in your lives, but it's going to require you all digging deep and fighting hard, because we're up for a big fight. But we need people like Heather and Patrick and our good friend, Ms. Swampy. Is that right? Let's see your name right? Yes. And Nigel. We need these folks elected. And so we need you to give everything you can, push a bit harder. And I remember my mom would always kind of inspire me with this phrase, and I'll leave you with this phrase. Whenever I asked her how she was doing, she would always say to me, Beta, which means dear, Beta, I'm in Chardikala. And I was like, oh, what's that mean? She said, Chardikala means rising spirits. And then she said a bunch of other stuff that I ignored. And then I go, okay, I got that, rising spirits. That sounds cool. Okay, so next time she asked me, I thought, okay, I'm going to use that phrase. So she asked me, and I said, oh, Mom. And she said, Jagmeet, how are you doing? I said, I'm in Chardikala. But then my mom, because she said that other stuff, she wanted to know if I actually paid attention. She said, why? And then I was, moms can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, so she wanted to test my knowledge, and I said, I don't know, I'm feeling good because it's nice outside, and I'm feeling a little bit of good energy today, I'm feeling healthy, I'm in rising spirits. And she kind of shook her head, disappointed. I had missed the lesson that she tried to teach me. So I said, yes, Mom, sorry, I missed something, what is it? And she said to me something that I always remember. She said, Chardikala, sure, it's rising spirits, but it's rising spirits in the face of hopeless odds. It's finding the courageous optimism to move forward, even when you're faced with barriers, challenges, obstacles, when things aren't going well, but you still dig deep and find the courage to move forward. I was pretty blown away. That's pretty deep. You'd agree, I'm sure. And then I felt a little sad because I thought about all the time she had to say Chardikala because she was going through tough times herself, and our family had gone through those difficulties. But I was also inspired because I know it takes a lot of courageous optimism to fight for the things we believe in our communities. Each and every one of you is doing that in your own way. You're fighting to build a better community, and sometimes it's against the odds. So I know we're going to need a lot of that Chardikala. We've got to take on a liberal government that's going to promise the world again. We've got to tell them, listen, let's look at their track record. That SNC scandal, it's not just a scandal, it's a proof point of who they're working for. They work for the powerful multi-billion-dollar companies, not for people. They make it easier for them, but harder for the rest of us. And that's what we've got to focus in on. The Conservatives do the same thing. When they're in power, they help out their powerful friends, they help the people at the very top, and they make it harder for everyone else. We see that here in BC, or here, sorry, in Alberta. BC is actually great right now. We see that here in Alberta. We see it in Ontario. Doug Ford has really made it horrible for people. And so we've got great examples, horrible examples of what Conservatives do. And people are going to need us to fight hard for them. So they're going to need us to have Chardikala. So I wish you all Chardikala. Wish you all the courageous spirits, rising spirits, to fight back and to build that better future. We're going to do it together. I know it's possible. There's so much potential. We've got a 12-year-old volunteer here. That's who we're doing it for. We're doing it because people need us, they're counting on us, and we can't let them down. And we're not going to let them down. So we're going to do this together, all right?